Oh, it's so cold in here. Right, I know I'm late, but this was worth waiting for. Or was it this one? Or that joke didn't work. Let's get into the video. Okay, I've got three MacBook Pros in front of me. The base model M3 version, by the way, this was loaned to us by Hoxton Macs. If you need a refurbished MacBook Pro, or most types of Macs to be honest, or any type of Mac, you know what I mean. If you want to not spend a fortune on a Mac, go to Hoxton. Thanks guys for lending us this for this particular video. There is the base model M4 MacBook Pro, which is the subject of this video, and there is my very expensive M3 Max version, which is this one here. They all look very, very similar, but there is a story to be told here, and it's all about the base model MacBook Pro. Now, my first ever MacBook Pro I bought in 2016, and it was rubbish. It was the Escape Key version. You might remember that. The reason it was called that is because it was the only MacBook Pro back then which didn't have the touch bar, which was also stupid. And it was just the cheapest one you could buy. I couldn't afford anything else. To be fair, for nearly 4 years, it did a fantastic job. But I ran it into the ground, that thing, and I always knew that there was something better out there that I probably should have bought to begin with. The problem back then, and actually right up to the M3 version, is that the base model MacBook Pro was always a little bit, there's something missing, it's still expensive. Maybe I should just be buying something better, or I should just buy the MacBook Air instead. Things have changed because the base model M4 MacBook Pro is, and this might spoil the rest of the video, I get that, but I need to say it straight away. This is the best MacBook Pro Apple has ever made. Now, I'm very late to the party with this, I understand, but if you're still thinking about buying the base model M4 MacBook Pro, this is the video for you, because I've been using this for the last week and I've got lots of thoughts. And equally, you might just be wondering why I think this is the best MacBook Pro ever made. Before we get started, just a very quick word from today's sponsor, which is UPDF. Now, PDFs crop up everywhere for contracts, for signing things, for research, for forms, and they're always really, really annoying. The good news is UPDF makes them not annoying, and boy, do we all need that. It's not overloaded with features that you'll never use, and it does the essentials really well. For example, editing PDFs, whether it's fixing text, moving images, or tweaking layouts, is way less frustrating with UPDF. I've also been using the annotation tools to add highlights and notes when I'm going through longer documents, which is a massive time saver. One feature that genuinely surprised me in UPDF is the AI assistant, which is built in. It's not an add-on, you get it as standard. And it's basically like a smarter PDF-specific version of ChatGPT. I've been testing it out and it's been super helpful for quickly summarizing dense PDFs or translating sections when I'm working on something that's outside of my comfort zone. And you just do it all in UPDF. You don't have to go into UPDF and then into ChatGPT. It's properly built in. The interface is really clean, there's no fluff, there's no clutter, and it's worth mentioning that UPDF is much more affordable than some of the big name alternatives out there. If PDFs are part of your workflow and you're tired of jumping between apps to get stuff done, UPDF is really worth a look. To find out more, just click that link in the description. Let's start with the most boring part of this review and get it out of the way, and I mean this in the nicest possible way because it's the performance, which is wonderful. If you're looking at the base model M4 MacBook Pro and thinking, I think that's going to do what I need it to do, just buy it. For $1,599, it is an absolute bargain. And you get 16 gig of unified memory. You didn't get that with the M3 version. That had 8 gig of unified memory, which didn't go down well. It didn't bother me. I gave this a good review actually last year, but I do understand why people wanted more memory. Well, the good news is you've got it. You can't buy an 8 gig MacBook Pro anymore. This one has 16. In terms of benchmarks, I don't do them because I can't be bothered, but I did check the Verge's benchmarks. They do lots of stuff with this and they're very clever, much cleverer than me. The numbers that stuck out for me were the fact that when they did a 4K video export from Premiere Pro on the base model M4 MacBook Pro, it took 3 minutes and 14 seconds, which is very fast. That's 33 seconds quicker than this, which isn't much, and it's 2 minutes slower than a decked out 16-inch M4 Max MacBook Pro, which is an incredibly expensive laptop. 2 minutes. You basically gain 2 minutes of time for spending all that money. Now there's a lot more to it than that, but that does kind of sum up Apple Silicon. Unless you're really pushing things and exploring, the kind of nether regions, the kind of, the upper echelons of the power available in the Pro and the Max chips, you don't need them. But that does bring me on to 2 comparisons that you might be thinking about, and the first one is the MacBook Air. If you're thinking about buying the base model M4 MacBook Pro, you're probably also considering the MacBook Air because it's cheaper. You could save yourself a few £100, a few $100 by going for that instead, but there are a few key differences. At the time of filming, for instance, there's no M4 MacBook Air. I mean, that will come at some stage, and by the time that you watch this video, it may be there already, but today, you can only buy an M3 MacBook Air. You can't get the M4 version, so this is a generation ahead of that. More importantly though, this is actively cooled, so it has built-in fans, it has these little vents here which let the hot air out, and that means that if you really push this, it won't throttle the performance, so it won't reduce its speed to keep things cool like the MacBook Air, because that doesn't have any fans. Also, this has far more upgradable options. You can change the chip, you can go to the Pro, the Max, you can increase the memory more, you can increase the storage more as well. The MacBook Air has fairly conservative upgrade options, so it's worth bearing that in mind as well. But the 2 biggest differences between this and the MacBook Air is firstly the display, which on here is much brighter. So the MacBook Air has 500 nits of peak brightness. This has 1600. So the MacBook Pro is much brighter, and it is definitely noticeable, trust me. This also has Pro Motion, which means it has a much smoother refresh rate, which you don't notice all the time, but it's nice to know it's there. The second big differentiator is the port situation. So on the MacBook Air, you get 2 Thunderbolt ports. That's it. On this, you get 3 Thunderbolt ports, but also HDMI and an SD card slot. And trust me, that makes a massive difference, particularly if you're doing lots of creative work. The last thing to mention about the M4 MacBook Pro over the MacBook Air is the fact that this has more CPU cores and it can have more GPU cores. Basically, you can, as I mentioned earlier, you can spec this up much further. The other thing that you might be wrestling with is whether or not to spend a little bit more and go for the M4 Pro version. Now, the differences between the M4, the base model M4, and the M4 Pro MacBook Pro are quite simple actually, and once you know what they are, they're very easy to get your head around. So the first thing is the cores. So you get 2 more CPU cores and 6 more GPU cores on the M4 Pro MacBook Pro. So if you know that you need more GPU cores, for instance, get that one. If you're doing intensive video editing, if you're running a business, if you're a freelance video editor and you just need as much performance as possible, it's probably worth spending a bit more and going for the M4 Pro version. Equally, you can upgrade the memory more on that one, so you can go up to 48 gig of unified memory and 4 terabytes of storage if you need that on board. However, again, for most people, this one is fine. If you're looking at that and thinking, well, I don't think I need, what would 48 gig of unified memory give me? Would I need 6 more GPU? Just get the base model. The only other thing the M4 Pro version can do over this is drive 2 external displays. This drives 1, which for most people is absolutely fine. But if you want a proper NASA setup, get the M4 Pro. But that's it. Everything else is the same between the M4 Pro and the M4 MacBook Pro, which brings me on to what is so good about this. Ooh, before I forget, if you've been watching this channel for a while now and you haven't hit that subscribe button, just give it a little click wherever it is these days. It makes a massive difference. 87% of the people who watch this channel regularly haven't clicked that button, so you could be the person to take us just over 200k, which we're so close to. So your support is massively appreciated. Now, on to the reason, or the reasons, that this is the best MacBook Pro Apple has ever made. I've mentioned them already, and it's the design and it's the display. It's those 2 things. Basically, this isn't hamstrung anymore. In the past, there was always something with that MacBook Pro, the cheapest one that you could buy, that was just a bit rubbish. Back in the days of my old butterfly keyboard escape key version, it wasn't even a MacBook Pro. It was a MacBook Air rebranded, basically. The M3 version, this one here, It had 8 gig of unified memory, which was annoying for a lot of people. It had 1 less Thunderbolt port. It was just a bit, you know, if you buy a car and your mate's got the same car, but they've got a slightly better version, and on that dash, on theirs, they have buttons, you know, exciting buttons you can press. On your dash, there's just a blank plate. It was a bit like that. You know, if you bought the cheapest MacBook Pro, it was just a bit rubbish for some reason. That era has thankfully finished. So for instance, the port situation, if you buy the base model, the cheapest M4 MacBook Pro, you get the same ports on this as you do the most expensive M4 Max version, and the display is identical, again, to apart from the size of the 16-inch, but it's identical to every other M4 MacBook Pro. It's not hampered in any way. Oh, and it comes in space black now as well. So the base model M3 MacBook Pro only came in silver. You can get the M4 version in space black, which looks lovely straight out of the box. But I will say, having used a space black M3 Max MacBook Pro for the last year, it doesn't wear very well. You get these little chips around some of the ports, and it does smudge. I mean, this is brand new, basically. This is, you know, the base model version, and you can see there it still smudges a lot. So bear that in mind. This is the least constrained, the least artificially hamstrung MacBook Pro ever. It's almost unbelievable that it exists, and that begs the question: who should buy it? If you're not bothered about active cooling and you don't really care too much for a ProMotion display and you don't need loads of ports on your laptop, just get the MacBook Air. If you're doing really intensive video editing, you know, loads of multicam work, complicated graphics and transitions and all that sort of stuff, and if that work is linked to you earning money, get the M4 Pro MacBook Pro. If you're analyzing loads of data or training AI models or bending the space-time continuum with your laptop, get the M4 Max MacBook Pro. For everyone else, and this is a lot of people, the base model M4 MacBook Pro is perfect. But I would love to know, are you going to buy a base model M4 MacBook Pro this year, and what are you going to do with it? And one very last plug in this video, I've revamped my newsletter. This is a weekly email that goes out. It's got a behind-the-scenes video from this studio, which I think you'll find interesting, and loads of other useful tidbits like stuff I've watched myself on YouTube, some of the best content I found elsewhere, and we've got lots of plans for this newsletter. It's completely free. You can unsubscribe at any time, but the link is down in the description if you want to check it out. In the meantime, guys, thanks for watching this video. Give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.